So, WandaVision recently wrapped up yesterday, and one of the questions I'm sure a lot of fans have been asking and speculating about is whether or not her sons that she manifested in the Hex along with Vision, that version of Vision, are they real now? Are Wanda's kids real? Because we know in the comics that they became real. Basically, they disappeared, came back, and thus were basically real. They were flesh and blood. But as far as the MCU is concerned, are they still out there? Are they now real enough to where Wanda can locate them in whatever dimension they could be trapped in and bring them back, and thus be reunited with them? That's a that's one of the biggest questions a lot of fans have right now. Now there are some like John Campia and others that have come out and pretty much said, "Oh no, 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 that's not true. That's not the case. Her kids. What she heard was just like a revisiting of her kids calling for help when they were trapped by Agatha. With the little like ropes around the magical ropes around their necks and all that. And that might be true too. Maybe she's gotten to that point where all that trauma she's trying to work through is breaking through again, and thus allowing her to become more corrupted through the studying of the Darkhold book than anticipated. Because remember, Agatha basically told her straight out, whether you want to admit it or not, you're the one that's prophesized as the Scarlet Witch to wipe out the universe, to wipe out the planet, if you will. So you have to wonder if just, perhaps what, folks like John Campia are saying is true. Like, you know, the only reason she heard the voices of her kids calling out for help is because that's just, an example of that trauma that she still has that's causing her to mentally break down and be easily corrupted. And that's a good point that's made by, John Campia and others. But the question again, though, that's why I'm doing this video, that everybody is asking is, when it comes to that last scene and she hears her kids' voices, are they real? Are her sons that she manifested and created in the hex real? You know, does that mean, what Agatha has basically pointed out, that Wanda is more powerful than she cares to admit, that she has this chaos magic that allows her to do more than even the Sorcerer Supreme Doctor Strange is capable of doing. So you have to wonder if perhaps, her kids in the Hex having powers similar to her and her brother, even though they were manifested in the Hex, caused them to become alive. In other words, true flesh and blood. And that instead of going away along with the Hex, instead of, dissipating like, the Hex version of Vision did, you have to ask yourself if perhaps instead of dissipating, they got trapped in some kind of dimension and are held prisoner by some kind of, dark evil or dark being or dark power or whatever the case may be. Or they're trapped somewhere and they're calling out for her for help because they know she's the only one capable of getting them back home. This is this is a big question that obviously needs to be answered. Now, others have brought up the fact that the reason she's studying the Darkhold book is to not only potentially find maybe where her kids are, if that is the case, but also potentially a way of remanifesting them to the point that she doesn't need the hex, around in any surrounding area to keep them alive. That they can basically, live outside of it, and that's why she's studying the magic, the spells in the Darkhold book to see if perhaps there's something in there that will allow her to manifest them into legitimate flesh and blood outside of any hex that would have been needed, as we saw here in WandaVision itself. But it is a good question. Are her kids alive? Are they alive now? Did she actually create life? Beyond anybody's expectation, proving what Agatha said about her to be true? Or maybe is the hearing of the kids' voices just a mental trigger in her that's causing her to be even more lost, even easier and more easier to be corrupted? And or is she, hearing the voices of her sons, and that's giving her motivation to continue further looking into this dark hole book and learning more about who she is and what she can do, so that she could potentially find a way to bring them back to the living flesh and blood. That, you know, those are questions that need to be answered. But what do you guys think? Do you think the kids are actually alive? Do you think maybe she's just hearing the voices and it's causing her to crack even more? Or do you think she's hearing the voices and it's giving her more motivation to potentially try to find a way to manifest them to actual flesh and blood outside of the hex? Let me know down below. Comment if you like. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments and the live chat during the premiere. And I will talk to y'all later.